Konnichiwa, yahoo! Hi everybody! Today I'm going to show you guys my bullet journal spread for the month of January. Yes, you heard that right. January. So millennial coded. There were all sorts of codec and processing issues with the original video for whatever reason, so I dedicated probably over 28 hours to just converting the video files so that they could be processed by my editor. But better late than never. This video is different from what I usually post, but I mentioned being irritated by the current algorithm that social media is run on, where you're forced to stick to one niche or topic. So I will be gradually posting whatever my heart desires. So without further ado, let's start. I'll explain what a bullet journal is a bit, since most of my subscribers probably don't know what it is. Essentially, the definition is just a journal with a bulleted list or planner, usually on a dotted grid book. However, the bullet journal community has turned it into a creative mix of lists, planning, and tracking. It is a primarily feminine hobby, however, I am for everyone to look into it because I'd honestly like to see more men have a creative outlet like this. It can be pretty intimidating to find where to start at first, but here are some pages that people often add to their bullet journals. All of these are optional, so don't feel like you have to do any of these. These are just some ideas. And some quick lingo: when you hear someone call something a spread, they're referring to the page that they made. So here are some spreads that you can do. You can make a yearly cover to show what year it is, a year at a glance page to show any important dates or things to remember, a yearly bucket list, a monthly cover and calendar, your weekly spread, which is usually your planner for the week, a mood tracker, a gratitude log where you write one good thing each day, a habit tracker, a sleep tracker, a movie tracker, and many more. You can look for lists on Pinterest for spread ideas. There's also a welcoming subreddit where people share their spreads. I personally like to have a monthly music log where I write about 5 new songs I've been listening to that month. You don't need to use your planner in the same manner that other people do. Lots of people have a bullet journal just for tracking what they read, what category the book was, etc. I personally have a separate bullet journal specifically for my anime tracking and to write my thoughts on the animes I watch. Let me know if you'd like to see a video about that as well. At the end of the day, your bullet journal should make you happy and it's for you only, so don't feel pressured to add or do anything with your spreads that you don't really care for. Without further ado, here is the spread spreads I made for January. I don't have a tripod, so you guys are just sitting on top of my goose cup on top of a candle. And yes, my phone fell over a lot. I started my journal late, about 1/3 into the month, which I didn't really pay attention to, so ignore any trackers showing the portion of the month that already happened. My spreads for January were also pretty sloppy compared to what I usually make, and this is because I'm trying to get back into bullet journaling after taking a break, so I was more focused on practicality than appearance. Hopefully my next video will look a bit better. On the topic of that, I will try to keep up with my bullet journal, but you guys probably won't see it as often depending on if the videos have the same issue as I had with them this time. Hopefully not. So here are some of my older spreads. I had a little journal label, I guess. I have a page to glue my tea bags in. I have my monthly covers and also my monthly songs I was listening to. I want to show my other spreads, but they have my school's name in them and my doctor's name, so I can't show them unfortunately. But they usually look like the example photos I showed earlier. I have quite a few nice markers, but they're mostly packed away and I couldn't find the box they're in, so I had to use colored pencils for my spreads, which isn't ideal for me, but I tried to make it work. I'm making my yearly cover and using the pink pencil to add some strawberries and a glue stick, since these things make me happy. I also drew a flower, and then I'm adding some more details with a pen. I'm trying to use my washi tape and stickers more. I have sticker paralysis, which is a word I just made up. I have a fear of using my stickers because then I'm ruining them, I feel like, so I'm trying to overcome that and use more stickers I like. I also have a bunch of very millennial coded stickers I bought in 2018 that you guys will see later. So I added some sakura flowers and an anime boy to start. Because I can't find my colorful markers, I used a highlighter to write 2026 on the top of the page, but I quickly regret it and put some paper over that and rewrote it. I'm diving diving headfirst into overcoming my fear of stickers by using my geese stickers I got as a gift. My family actually bought me 2 copies of this sticker sheet in hopes that it would help my fear and I would actually use them. I'm also adding some Dragon Ball stickers. Here is the new 2026 I made, and I'm using this super cool blue glue stick to glue it down. Here are some more stickers I like to use. I have a lot. I'm going to use these strawberries too. Here are the markers I do have. They're all neutrals pretty much. Next I'm going to use these markers to make my January cover. I wasn't really sure what I wanted it to look like, so I referenced a Pinterest photo for the label and then put stickers after. I drew these little balls and I had to keep counting them because I always make computing mistakes on things like this because I have dyscalculia and some other processing issues. In my programming, my anime journal cover is on the back of the journal instead of the front, and usually my trackers and things get numbered incorrectly no matter how carefully I do it. I try not to be too mad at myself or a perfectionist about it. So I drew these little balls and then I'm writing January inside of them, and then I put some messy circles around the balls and I think it turned out really cute. Then I drew some hearts and little sparkle shapes. I added some Christmassy stickers like this pine stripe thing, a mistletoe, a present, some trees, more presents, and a star. Then I wanted to use these brand new stickers I got for myself a year ago, and that is my January month cover. I don't have any tea. I want tea. Sorry for the lighting change. I don't have a good recording setup because I don't typically make IRL recorded content like this, so the lighting is just a lamp and a candle and whatever sunlight is outside. Aki started crying at my door, so I brought him in my room. Next I'm starting my January monthly spread and writing all my appointments and stuff on it. I accented it with some tape. And I put some light dots on each square where the date would go, and then I numbered my calendar and I quickly messed it up. I got confused here and started counting, trying to find where I went wrong, and then I'm using some line stickers to cover the numbers and write the correct ones. Then I wrote January wrong on the header, and I got mad at myself and used another piece of paper to cover it. I was gonna rewrite January on the paper, but I changed my mind and I just covered it up with stickers. I filled in some appointments and then used some of my encouraging millennial stickers. One thing I did last time that I really liked was I made a jar of compliments page. So I'm just drawing a jar. My last one that I was able to fill completely, and I'm just writing some of the compliments I got recently, and of course adding more stickers. Then I decided to make an adulteress page based on Tetris, but I wasn't sure how one would spell adulteress since it's not a real word. I added some things I want to be able to do often, and then I'm going to try to fill the grid with the tasks I completed each day. Something I had last time I did bullet journaling was a habit tracker, and while they looked cute and weren't necessarily bad, if I had a health flare-up, a lot of habits just didn't get done for over a week sometimes, and it made it intimidating and kind of defeating to return to the page at all. So I think by using this method and leaving it as an open space for me to just fill at my own pace, it will be a bit easier on my mental health. No hate to the bullet journal community, but as I said earlier, it is a very woman-centric community, and most of the videos I see from other people showing their spreads reveal they're mostly pretty healthy, normal people whose habits mainly depend on, well, if they complete their habits and tasks, not if their body can get out of bed. The majority's habit trackers consist of things like cooking a meal, running errands, exercise, and cleaning. Things they do on a daily basis that I'm not able to. It's just not obtainable for me or most chronically ill people. And that's not the community's fault, but the traditional trackers might not always work for me or you. When I was more active in the bullet journal community, I was actually very strong-willed and was able to force myself to complete a lot of my habits and goals, but it felt as if I was operating a very old Gundam that didn't want to work, and I didn't feel very good physically at the end of the day. I realized that my situation is different and that's fine, so I'm trying a few different spreads this month to see what works best with my situation. As much as I just like to write down exercise or do the dishes in my habit tracker, it doesn't mean my body will magically be able to do it whenever I want it to. The things I want to do more are shower, ideally daily, so I'm making it worth 1 square since it's like the lowest level of things I think I should be able to do. It was actually pretty hard for me when recording this, but I have gotten much better at showering daily since then. I also want to study Japanese and Russian as much as I can. I also added some chores like doing the dishes and doing and folding the laundry. I added wash my hair, which is incredibly hard for me, so I do this once a week at least if I can, and cook a meal, which is probably one of the harder things, but that's not just for me. I'm sure everyone else struggles with cooking a meal often too. And then I'm just adding some tasks I completed recently. And now I'm making a self-care page. As previously mentioned, I'm changing the way I log my self-care practices. I think it's important to do 1 or 2 acts of self-care a day for everybody. This can be anything that makes you happy or is good for your health, like lighting a candle or reading or showering. I and a lot of other people usually make self-care bingo, which is a spread that looks like a bingo sheet with some activities that you consider self-care. One of my older self-care pages had things like edit a video, watch anime, or go outside and garu, etc. But similar to the habit tracker situation, depending on how I'm feeling, these things won't get done in the quantity that I want them to, especially if the spaces are full of pre-filled options. So instead, I decided to make a blank game board style page, which I forgot that half the month had already gone by, so ignore that. And then on the right, I'm making a self-care menu to pair with it. I'm writing down everything I can possibly think of, and all I have to do is pick one thing and write it down each day. Of course, this isn't limited to my menu, this is just a list of ideas to pick from. There are some things on the menu I wrote a limit of how many times I can write them, just to make sure I'm keeping some variety. And of course, stickers and anime boys. And next, I'm making my monthly mood tracker. This one I hesitated even adding because mood trackers just kind of make me sad. I figured because of my limited markers, making it teabag themed would be cute because I only have neutral browns and tan markers right now. At the end, I added some teacups, and then I tried to draw a Guinness glass before realizing it would only work if the mood I was feeling correlated with whatever mood has a dark brown color, so I kind of gave up. Next, I'm writing the mood menu, and wait. Before you get concerned about the options, allow me to clarify. My mood trackers have always looked like this ever since I started bullet journaling in 2018. This is because many autistic people have alexithymia, which is a neurological trait that causes us to have difficulty identifying, understanding, labeling, describing, and processing our different emotions. What this means is that negative emotions tend to blend together, or can be mislabeled by a blanket label. For example, being so happy that we are excited might just be labeled as anxiety because we mistake it for anxiety because our heart is beating fast, which in turn is just labeled as a bad emotion, so we might say we feel sad to describe happy excitement. Of course, this is just a simple explanation, but for this reason, I was taught to try and be as specific with my negative emotions as possible, and I have had the same emotion menu ever since I was a teen. Just because there's a concerning emotion on here does not mean I feel it regularly or at all. These are just here so I remember how to label them if I do feel them. The amount of negative emotions I write has actually gone down significantly since 2018. I remember I posted my emotion spread on a forum for bullet journals, and someone asked me why 99% of the emotions were negative. I think I have 18 negative emotions on there. Next, I was debating adding a sleep tracker, but my sleep schedule tends to fluctuate and I wasn't really into making one. It seemed kind of boring to me, so I added a stream tracker instead. Next, this is just for me, but I decided to add a morning and a night routine, which I guess for me is more of a waking up and sleeping routine, and not based on the time of day. I wanted to write a routine to stick to for the month and then reflect back on it later and see what I wanted to add or change. Next, I picked a lovely motivational millennial sticker. Another thing I experimented with was having a symptom tracker, so I made a small calendar-like chart and then wrote the symptoms I experienced that I want to log. I also made it pretty messy because I'm experimenting with this spread to see if I would even use it. I kept up with this specific tracker for a while, but I eventually switched to a really cool app I found called Visible. I figured if I am bedridden, the last thing I want to do is grab my journal and get my markers and pens out and log it in a physical place on the other side of the room. Next, I decided to also attempt a basic habit habit tracker a bit differently from what I normally used to do. I added 4 habits I wanted to do and 3 levels of completing each of them, depending on my health that day. And I quickly jotted down a tiny habit tracker to see if I would, but I quickly switched to an app later while keeping the level system. So if I'm feeling good, my chore habit can be completed by doing the dishes, and if I'm feeling awful, it can be completed by tidying for just 5 minutes. And I made levels like these for all of my habits that I wanted to do. Next, I'm making my weekly spread, which is only 3 days long because of when I started recording. It was National Strawberry Ice Cream Day on Thursday, so I wrote that down. I like to check out the national holidays in case I have anything I want to celebrate, like Goose Day. And then I decided to make a time block style planner, which is something I don't usually do. I saw a lot of people say that a time blocking schedule helps them combat their ADHD, but honestly it didn't work for me at all, because if anything goes awry, you're spending the entire day playing catch up with your planner. I added some time to complete my morning routine to study and eat in the morning, and then do whatever task was my priority for the day. I also made a little weekly goals section and then added a slot for content creation since I want to dedicate more hours a week to YouTube. And then in case you didn't notice, there are streams here that never happened. This is because of what I mentioned earlier. I had a health flare-up around this time and tried my best to stick to my planner, but for the most part things that involved speaking and sitting up for a long time just didn't happen. And I quickly learned that in my natural state, especially in winter, I cannot have any sort of predetermined schedule because I was not awake for more than 6 to 8 hours at a time, and sometimes just 2 hours at a time. Anyways, I added some cringy stickers, and that was my last spread I recorded for January. If you like this style of video, please let me know and I can post more journaling content when I can. I really don't mind as long as I don't have any more video errors again. And hopefully my next few spreads look a little nicer. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm sorry if I'm a little shy in this video. I'm actually very camera shy if I'm making pre-recorded content. Anyways, thank you guys for hanging around even though I've been gone. I've been in and out of the doctor's office and hospital, and it's been a little rough, but I'm finally getting my time management under control, and I will be back to regular content shortly. Anyways, thank you for watching. Spasiba and ja mata na. Bye bye. Baka baka.